Welcome to Sinister Studies. Join me each episode as I delve into some truly sinister topics and traumatize my family. I'll be joined by one or more teenager, and from time to time, we'll have special guests. Be forewarned, our stories are seriously sinister, so listener discretion is always advised. I have been promising you an episode where nobody dies. Pepper's left us. She's disgusted.
Yeah. She was disgusted by the feedback.
She was very disgusted by the feedback. Yes, welcome back to Sinister Studies. Today we are going to talk about a case where nobody dies. So there are...
I'm not looking forward to this.
2 indisputable facts about being the victim of a rape. First one being that rape is the only crime where the integrity of a victim is scrutinized, sometimes even more so than the attackers themselves, i.e., piece of shit Brock Turner. The other is that statistically, probably directly related to the first fact, is that 3 out of 4 rapes will go unreported.
We do not live in a society encourages people to come out about what happened to them, and we do not live in a society that supports rape victims.
This thought process is not just a product of the United States. It is, unfortunately,
Yeah.
a worldwide issue. Today we're going to be talking about the unbelievable story of a rape spree in the Pacific Northwest.
Probably going to be, unfortunately, believable. Unfortunately. It's just like sorry.
In 2008 in Linwood, Washington, Marie is an 18-year-old product of the foster system. She'd been in and out of foster homes for most of her life until she aged out of the system at 18. She was severely abused as a child and hadn't had an easy time in the system, not really finding stable homes that she felt she fit into until she was just about to age out. And because she was aging out and facing the really scary prospect of adulting on her own with very little parental guidance, she luckily qualified for a program where a number of newly adult foster children each were given their own apartment and guided into adulthood by staff members. They talked about paying bills and cell phones and getting jobs and basically just getting their life together. She scored a retail job and had recently gotten her learner's permit and now had her very own apartment. Marie was still friends with an ex-boyfriend. She frequently spoke to him late into the night because both seemingly had insomnia. So on this particular night, Marie got off the phone with him in the very early morning hours, and soon after falling asleep, she was awoken to find a man in a ski mask towering over her in her bedroom. He would use her own shoelaces to bind her hands.
Shoelaces?
Shoelaces.
Man.
The man was much larger than Marie, and unfortunately, she knew she was not going to have much of a choice as to what was going to happen next to her. Over a period of hours, she was repeatedly raped by this masked assailant. He would often pause to take pictures of her in compromising positions. And in one picture, he placed her ID on her so it was prominently visible in the pictures. He told her that if she reported him, he would publish the pics on the web and everyone would see. He then gathered up all of her bedding and left.
I'm gonna start killing.
After he left, Marie tried to call her friend back, and when she couldn't reach him, she would call one of her former foster mothers, with whom she was still very close and spoke to frequently. Her foster mother urged her to call the police, so that is exactly what Marie did. When the police arrived, and they were all men, at around the same time her foster mother did, Marie recounted the story to officers in a very matter-of-fact way. She was taken to the hospital for a rape kit and lab panels to make sure she had not contracted any STDs. She was given Plan B and discharged because she did not feel safe in her apartment. She went to stay with a friend. When police interviewed her again the following day, some of the details she provided were slightly different than the day before.
Which happens.
Yes.
I mean, people's memories are never perfect.
Because there were some slightly different details, again, none of the major details were different. It basically came down to, how did she dial her cell phone with her hands bound? At one point she said with her toes, another point it was something else she used to dial. So police asked her to write out her official statement. Her statement, which she wrote out, was also very straight and to the point. These officers didn't feel that Marie was acting like a victim. They had their doubts. There were the inconsistencies in her story, and they couldn't find any definitive point of entry for the assailant. They also felt it was very odd that he used her own shoelaces to tie her up for the crime.
But how is that, like, her? Like, oh.
I got nothing.
And why would she just make that up? Like, he used my own shoelaces. Like, why would she make that up? Anyway.
Unfortunately, most damning of all was the fact that one of her former foster mothers, the one who had showed up at her apartment and one who had always felt that she was troubled, yet an honest person, had called the police of her own accord to tell them that she felt that Marie was making things up for more attention. She says that Marie has always been an honest kid, but she didn't think that she was telling the truth about this, that she just wanted attention.
Man.
So police brought her in again, this time questioning her as a suspect instead of as the victim. And they did this without an attorney present. They pushed her and pushed her until Marie thought it would just be easier to drop the whole damn thing. So she buckled under the pressure and said that she may have dreamt the whole thing up, although it seemed very real.
My mic fell off. What, the police were pressuring her?
Police were questioning her.
Did you hear about, I don't remember where it was, but a man's father, like, went missing for a little bit. The man called the police. The police brought him in for questioning, and then, like, essentially, like, psychologically tortured him into confessing to murdering his father when the father was still alive. And even brought in this man's dog, said they were going to put it down if he didn't confess, etc., etc. Like,
they were probably using the same technique these officers were using. It's called the Reed method, if I'm not mistaken. That basically just bullies the shit out of a person to get a confession at all costs. In this case, they strongly suggested to her that she would be kicked out of her program and thus lose her housing. He also told her that false reporting was a crime for which she could go to prison for.
Just like makes me so fucking angry that like they can just do that and get away with it. And like they don't even necessarily need to have a reason to do it. They can just do it for shits and giggles if they want to, and nobody can stop them.
Yeah. When Marie got back, the counselors at her program spoke with her, and she told them basically what had happened at the station. And they urged her to again speak to the police and tell them that she had in fact been raped. So the counselors took her back to the station, where the police again aggressively interviewed her alone. So she felt she had no choice than to go with the story that it had been made up, because they didn't believe her anyway. And when counselors asked her in front of the officers what had happened, she was basically intimidated to tell the counselors that she had made the whole thing up. The counselors then called a program meeting and forced Marie to apologize to the other participants for not only lying about it, but causing fear and unease in their small community, because most of the participants were women. She would lose a number of friends for this. She would become a social pariah. She would lose her job. She would have a former friend go so far as to create a website to further ostracize her. This was eventually taken down, but the damage was done. But worst of all, Marie eventually would get a summons in the mail. She was being charged with false reporting. This is highly unusual, especially in sexual assault crimes. They usually, even if it's proven that the victim was lying, they do not prosecute it, because that would deter actual victims from reporting their attacks. Eventually, Marie would receive a deal: 1 year probation with provisions. Get mental help and speak to a psychiatrist, stay out of trouble, and also pay $500 in court costs. If all of these happen, Marie would not be formally charged. The alternative to this deal would be jail time and a criminal record. So Marie took the deal.
I'm not having a good time right now.
3 years later, January 5th, 2011, in Golden, Colorado, police are called to an apartment building around 1 p.m. with an unusual call of a daytime rape. Detective Stacy Galbraith pulled up to the scene to find the 26-year-old victim outside, wearing a long coat and holding a bag of her belongings in her hand. Galbraith took her to her car to interview her in the privacy of her cruiser. The victim said she was a student at a nearby university and had been home alone in her first-floor apartment. For her, it began as a run-of-the-mill night. She made dinner and binged her favorite shows before heading to bed. She was awoken at 8 a.m. by a man jumping on her back, rendering her immobile. He was wearing a black mask and brandished a gun, telling her that he would use it if he needed to. He tied her hands behind her back with a pink ribbon, which she would later flash back to, and it was one of her ribbons that had gone missing. And he pulled from his backpack moist towelettes, water, and lubricant, along with thigh-high stockings and stripper heels, which he put on her. He then alternatively raped her and took pictures of her for more than 4 hours. He told her that if she goes to the police, he would put the pictures up on the internet for everybody to see. When he was done, he told the victim that he had easily broken in using the sliding glass door and suggested that in the future she put a dowel in the track to prevent something like this from happening again. He then told her to get up and brush her teeth, and then he ordered her into the shower and told her to thoroughly wash herself. When she emerged, he was gone, along with her bedding. The victim told Detective Galbraith that she remembered a large, egg-shaped birthmark on his calf. The victim was calm and collected. She had said that she had spoken to her attacker in an attempt to get as much information as she could. She felt that he may have been military, and she was very certain that this was not his first attack. She also told Detective Galbraith that after the attack, she had first called her boyfriend, who urged her to contact the police, so she had. Detective Galbraith took swabs from her face right then and there, and she then drove her to the hospital for the standard rape kit exam and testing that inevitably follows attacks of this sort. Back at the apartment, Galbraith's team scoured the scene, finding shoe prints in the snow outside. They were able to take photographs of the prints, and they also took swabs from all over the apartment and interviewed all of her neighbors. No one heard anything. By the time that Galbraith had returned home, she was exhausted. She had wanted to run the case by her husband, who was an officer in a nearby town called Westminster. He told her to contact his department the next day because they have an almost identical case there. So the next morning, she emailed Detective Edna Hendershot of the Westminster Police Department that they had similar cases. Upon reading the case summary, Hendershot thought about a case from 5 months prior in which a 59-year-old woman had an eerily similar experience. She also had been awoken by somebody jumping on her back. He was wearing a black mask and secured her hands behind her back. She said he took pictures of her with a pink Sony camera. He told her that she should think twice about leaving her windows open and forced her into the shower, telling her to wash for 20 minutes. She wanted to make sure that she followed his directions precisely, so she asked him to grab the kitchen timer and set it for 20 minutes. He did end up going to get the kitchen timer. He set it, and he left. He also took all of the bedding. There was also a case of which the detective was aware of in Aurora, Colorado in 2009, where a 65-year-old woman was assaulted by a man who had broken into her home wearing a black scarf over his face. He also used a ribbon to restrain her and took pictures. Both cases were labeled inactive as they had no leads.
She looks so peaceful right now. I wish that was me.
But Galbraith and Hendershot were determined. These were definitely the women you want in your case. If anything happens to you, start to finish was less than 2 months with these two women.
Okay. So they actually did something for fucking once.
They did the damn thing.
Oh.
Together, they called a meeting with the Aurora detective, Scott Burgess, who was heading their case. They wanted to together review all of the information that they currently had. They formed a loose, unofficial task force. They had an officer review hours and hours of security footage from a camera near where the Golden victim had lived. The best they could come up with was that a white Mazda pickup truck with a busted side mirror drove by her complex over and over and over again in the hours prior to their assault. The footage wasn't great, so they couldn't make out a plate number. With no more to go on, the detectives decided to broaden their scope. So they contacted other nearby departments for reports of similar crimes. And the town of Lakewood responded that they did have an attempted burglary that happened about a month prior to Westminster's. A 46-year-old woman had been attacked in her home attacked in her home by a man wearing a black mask. The man had tried to restrain her arms, but she was able to get away and jumped from the second story. She suffered broken ribs and a punctured lung as a result from the fall. When they investigated, they did find shoe prints along with a honeycomb-shaped print on a window. Much to the victim's credit, she harassed the shit out of that police department.
As she should.
She wanted a police artist to do a sketch, and when the department refused, citing the fact that the victim was wearing a mask, she had an artist friend do one up for her, and then she brought it to the police department. She called them when she found one of her kitchen knives in her garden. She thought that her attacker had taken it from her kitchen and dropped it when he ran from the house. But they didn't have any prints other than the shoe print and the honeycomb pattern. And there was the fact that this victim was also deemed a space cadet. So a lot of what she said was taken with a grain of salt. An example of this is that she reportedly chose to worship at the base of a neighbor's tree. I hope it was a magnificent tree. When the neighbors sold the house and a new neighbor moved in, she continued to worship, and when she refused to stop, the police were called. She wasn't charged with anything, but the report was there. So her case was also marked inactive, but it was marked as an attempted burglary and not an attempted rape. However, the police did mark the honeycomb prints because similar prints was also found at the Westminster scene as well. It turns out these prints were made by Under Armour gloves sold by Dick's. And upon further analysis, the shoe prints that they took at the scene matched the golden prints. They were made by a pair of Adidas ZX700s. The team had been able to solidly connect 4 assaults in Colorado. The first in Aurora, October 2009, the attempted rape in July 2010, the Westminster attack in August 2010, and the Golden assault in January 2011. They could definitively say that they had a serial rapist on their hands, but they had very little evidence to go on. The perp was thorough. He clearly knew that different jurisdictions rarely talked amongst themselves, so he went to 3 completely different areas for each of his crimes. He cleaned up after himself. He took anything that may have his DNA on it, such as bedding and clothing. But nobody is perfect, and they were able to find 3 minute samples of touch DNA on the most mundane of surfaces. One off the victim herself, another off the kitchen timer, and the last on a teddy bear that he had accidentally knocked off a shelf. So just 5 weeks into this joint investigation, a meeting was held on February 8th, 2011. With the meeting winding down, they were discussing how to drum up any other leads that they may have possibly missed. A Lakewood crime analyst told a group in passing that they had run the footage prior to their attack and that a white Mazda truck with a busted side mirror had been seen seemingly circling the area leading up to their assault. That sparked them to search any reports of a similar vehicle in the area, and wouldn't you fucking know, there was a match. A few weeks prior to the crime, in a lazy area where everybody knows everybody's business, a call came in about a suspicious vehicle parked on a residential street. It definitely didn't belong there, and there was a man just sitting inside. Police investigated, but by the time they got there, the man was no longer in the white Mazda truck. Police told the very concerned neighbor that there wasn't really anything they could do because it was legally parked on a public street. But the officer did take the plate down and entered it into the log when he returned to the precinct. With this new information came new urgency. They were able to use the license plate readers that Lakewood had on their police cruisers to definitively say that the very same white SUV had been in the area the day of the most recent attack. When they compared the footage, the trucks were almost identical. The truck was registered to 32-year-old veteran Mark O'Leary of Lakewood. When they compared the footage to O'Leary's truck, they were identical. Both had a busted passenger side mirror, both had a ball hitch on the back, and both had marks on the same place, which they are assuming may have come from a bumper sticker being pulled off the truck. They needed to know as much as possible about the truck's owner before they could make a move. It turns out he had renewed his license just hours after the Westminster attack. In fact, it appears that he probably didn't even change his clothes to do this. His victim in Westminster reported that he was wearing a white t-shirt. On his new driver's license, he is also wearing a white t-shirt. He was 6'1" with hazel eyes. His build matched the descriptions that his victims had given the police. So the team simultaneously started watching him and started digging. And although O'Leary didn't have a criminal record, they did discover that he was the proud owner and operator of a number of really disturbing porn sites.
Oh.
The least offensive of them, and I'm not even going to talk about names of this because it's disgusting, involved teens.
Like
teenagers.
Actual, like minors?
They were probably 18.
Ugh.
Extreme S&M. And granny porn. Now, those are the least offensive ones, just so you're aware. His sites used images from other porn sites and provided links to each of those sites. He would then make a profit each time someone used his link to access the original site. Police were just missing one crucial part. They needed his DNA. So on February 11th, when a man fitting the description of Mark O'Leary left his house, police followed him to a nearby restaurant, where they waited and waited for almost 2 hours. And when he left, they ran in and grabbed the cups off the table. At the very same time, officers knocked on the door to the residence, ready to either put up some surveillance equipment or present someone with a bullshit story. It was the latter. Mark O'Leary himself opened the door, accompanied by his dog. The man at the restaurant was Michael O'Leary, his brother. Detectives had prepared themselves for this possibility, so when he answered, they told him that they were from the police and they were there to follow up on some break-ins in the area. They asked him to look at a police sketch. Had he seen anyone matching this description in the area? O'Leary took the picture, looked at it, and handed it back. No, he hadn't. They thanked him for his time and went on their not-so-merry way. But this was okay. They could still run the DNA from the cup. It would either be an O'Leary man or it wouldn't be. Either way, they would have an answer, at least on the O'Leary subject.
Yeah, I mean, it narrows it down a lot. At least.
If it was an O'Leary, a further DNA test of the two would tell them exactly which one it was. Due to nationwide backlogs, DNA testing often takes weeks, if not months, to come back. Knowing that they were now working on borrowed time, they were able to put a rush on it, and it came back the very next day, which was a Saturday. It was an O'Leary that had committed these heinous crimes. They ruled out the father very quickly. He was out of state. And after some back and forth with the judge, who was old-fashioned and required the warrant request be faxed to him on hard copy instead of emailed on a Saturday night, the warrant was signed on February 12th and would be served the very next day by Detective Galbraith. She banged on the door announcing their arrival with a warrant, and when Mark O'Leary opened the door, a pit bull and a Shar-Pei raced out the door ahead of him. To my knowledge, no doggos were injured during the takedown.
Well, at least there's that. At least there's that.
Galbraith grabbed O'Leary, patted him down, and pulled up his pants leg, where she found exactly what she was hoping for: a large, egg-shaped birthmark. He was taken into custody and arrested for rape and burglary in Golden. He immediately invoked his right to an attorney.
Oh, boo-hoo.
While officers escorted O'Leary to jail, where he would be strip-searched and photographed nude, Galbraith and her team searched the house. Inside, they quickly confirmed their suspicions. In the bathroom, they found a headscarf tied into a mask. They also found Under Armour gloves with a honeycomb pattern and a pair of Adidas ZX700 whose treads matched the treads taken at the scene of two of the crimes. But Galbraith wanted more, because those three things could be argued away, because Under Armour and Adidas were both extremely popular brands, with many people owning these exact same styles. So they kept searching O'Leary's meticulously organized home. In his bedroom, they found a pink Sony camera, a Ruger, and a backpack with Ziploc bags. Each were neatly labeled, containing, among other things, wet wipes and lubricant. They also found the computer that O'Leary had used to run his mini porn empire. Tucked away inside a large speaker, they found multiple pairs of women's underwear.
Ugh.
All different sizes, styles, materials. More underwear than they currently had victims for.
Ugh.
They knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that they had their man. And Galbraith called her victim, the 59-year-old, that very night, met her at a restaurant, and told her that they had caught her attacker. But the team's job was far from over. Now they had to put him behind bars. They were now set with the task of pulling away the layers of O'Leary's life. And his thoroughly organized computer, which, along with many, many, many disturbing things, had a file which was encrypted with the most resistant software available. So resistant, in fact, that this massive file has never been opened to this day.
Damn. And when was this?
2011.
Encrypted that shit so good. It has not been opened.
They tried them to crack it there for years. At one point, basically having a program run passwords at it for 6 months solid, and they couldn't crack it. And eventually they would send it to the FBI cryptology team. They could not crack it. And O'Leary refuses, still to this day, to give them the password to that file.
I mean, it's already over for him, and he's just like, no.
He will not do it.
Like, dude, admit defeat at this point. Like, it's fucking, like, you fucked up real good, and it's already over.
Whatever is on there, I'm assuming is so depraved that he just can't bear the thought of other people saying it. That's the only thing I can think of.
I really don't want to know what's on there. Honestly. Like, I'm glad that we do not have the details because I'm not sure I want to hear them. In fact, I can certifiably say I do not. I don't even want to know.
So with their options limited on the computer, they turned their attention to that cute little pink Sony camera, which had an SD card in it. And with that, they struck gold. Or not gold. I don't know. Coal? Coal? Could we call it coal? Maybe.
They struck something.
They struck something. They found what they needed. What? Picture.
Fuck ass taking photographic evidence of his crimes and then just leaving that camera around in his house.
He was very confident that he would not get caught.
Really? Fucking bitch ass motherfucker.
They found picture after picture after picture of his victims while he was stalking them, because it wasn't an impulsive thing. He planned these attacks, and also during their attacks. All in provocative posed positions, all looking completely terrified. In one picture, even though it didn't show his face, it did show the distinct egg-shaped birthmark, along with other birthmarks that they were able to match on O'Leary's body thanks to the thorough job they did while photographing his naked body, which I'm hoping made him extremely fucking uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, how do you like it? How do you like it, huh? How do you like it?
And investigators had to look at picture after picture. And the way the SD card works is it will overwrite files. So even if you delete an image, it won't go away until the file has been overwritten. And at the very end of this SD card, they found one picture of a young woman in the same terrifying position as all the others. And in this one, she had her license placed on her chest.
Fuck those motherfuckers who said she was lying for real. I actually hope they die. I had to get that off my chest.
It, as you figured out very quickly, was Marie. And detectives quickly called the Linwood Police Department and asked for the case file on Marie. They were shocked when they received information back that only had the case file of Marie's prosecution for false reporting and not a rape case.
Fuck these guys for real. Like, actually, like, fuck these guys for real.
And Galbraith was furious.
As she should be, girl. I am too.
When she called, they told her that there was absolutely not a rape case involving Marie.
Oh, fuck
but
these
that
guys.
She hadn't been, in fact, charged with false reporting because she had, quote, admitted to the false reporting. And all evidence from her attack that was collected during their very fucking short investigation had been destroyed, along with the rape kit that was collected in the hours after her attack.
Because it's like, even if you decided she was lying, what, you take it off file too? You destroy all the evidence?
Yep.
Like, fuck off, actually.
So the Colorado team immediately informed the detective that was still employed at the department that not only had they fucked up massively and charged a rape victim with false reporting, but that their failure to follow up on the actual crime, which had actually happened, ensured that a monster would go on to brutalize many other women. To his credit, this detective personally went to Marie. He brought with him a woman's advocate to break the news to her. He apologized profusely, and the department gave her a check for $500, her refund on the court costs from her case.
And that's the least they could have fucking done. That's literally the bare fucking minimum. Literally the bare minimum.
The other detective that was on the case at that time is a complete piece of shit.
Oh, no.
And is now employed as a private investigator, sometimes doing investigations for the government as well.
He still has a job?
He still has a job. He's not a police officer anymore, though.
Okay. Whoever this guy is needs to get fired, needs to have his shit beat in, I think, actually.
Oh, it gets better.
Oh, no.
When called for comment, he doubled down on his original charges of false reporting.
Even though they had proof that she was not.
Even though they told him they had undeniable proof that she was telling the truth. And he told them that if they wanted it, when they told the authors of the book and the article that I referenced, that if they wanted an interview, he would require compensation for one.
Oh, fuck no, dude. Actually, what a fucking dickhead.
Yeah. He did not care that he ruined somebody's life. Oh, that's a big stretch, Pippa.
I know. She was stretching for a solid 5 seconds.
The Colorado team was now ready to throw the book at O'Leary. But the prosecutor was extremely sensitive to the fact that a trial would require his victims to testify to face him in court. They also knew that they had an airtight case and that there was no jury that would let this monster walk. So one by one, each of his victims were brought in and asked if they would be open to making a deal to avoid a trial.
Well, yeah, because, they have undeniable evidence.
All of his victims agreed. So they went to O'Leary and offered him a deal. The original deal did include their request for the password for this file. He refused that deal.
Ugh.
He would not give them the password. He eventually would take a deal. And in court, on his sentencing, his victims all made impact statements outlining their continued fear, anxiety, and mistrust. One woman talked about how her favorite colors are no longer her favorite colors because that's the way her bedroom was decorated during the attack. They spoke about their shattered lives. They all had PTSD, and they were all continually in anguish from the situation. O'Leary would then get up and make a statement himself outlining his crimes. He spoke for quite a long time.
Ugh.
When he stood in front of the judge, he said, "I'm standing here because I need to be in prison."
Yeah, you do.
I know that probably more than anybody in this room. I've known it for a while.
Oh, hell no. I know it more than anybody else in this room.
He described himself in detail as a sexual predator who has had...
No shit.
That he remembers having thoughts, deviant thoughts, going back to childhood.
And if you have those thoughts, it is your job to go to therapy and get help in treatment and not to act on them literally ever. Oh my god. I guess you can't control your thoughts, but you can control your actions. Oh my fucking god.
Before I get to the next part, I didn't include it because it wasn't part. They interviewed him extensively after.
Uh-huh.
And he was very open with them that he had these thoughts and feelings for quite a while. When he was in the military based in Asia, that's when he started hunting and raping women. That's where he started perfecting, if you will, his strategy.
And did those women ever get justice?
Probably not, no. His mother was in the courtroom holding a written prepared statement for the judge while he was speaking. People in court pretty much saw her crumple that up and throw it away. She was disgusted by everything that she had just heard. She would not plead for leniency for her son. The judge, who had been shown redacted pictures of the victims, was ready for his sentence. He called O'Leary's rapes as commando style and said, "I've been a judge for a long time. I have never seen a case this aggravated. You hunted the victims in this case like they were your prey." Because he had raped his victims over and over during the hours-long attack, he wound up pleading guilty for these 4 cases to 28 counts of rape in Colorado. The judge handed down a sentence. Oh my God.
God, that was so pronounced.
Dad shit himself.
Zoe's so happy.
She's so happy you shit on her.
She's like, take me with you. She's so lovely. Man.
The judge handed down the sentence of 327 and a half years.
How many?
327 and a half.
And a half. He's not fucking around.
He would go on to be prosecuted for Marie's rape as well as another rape in Washington State. For those, he would receive an additional 68 and a half years. He will eventually be eligible for parole.
Oh, fuck no.
But not until the year 2284.
2284. Okay. So we have a little while.
Yeah.
How old is he?
He's about my age, actually.
Oh, man. So he probably won't be dead by then.
By 2284? I anticipate being dead by 2284.
Wait, no, I can't do math. Oh, my God.
Good Lord. Unless there's advances in science.
I misheard the number, and I was like, wait, that's not that long. And then you repeated it. I was like, oh, my God. How did my brain even process that incorrectly? Okay, so he will be dead.
Yes.
But what are they gonna fucking...
I don't think anybody will come and claim his body. I mean, at that point, his mother will probably be dead before him. Nobody wants him.
I don't think his mother would claim his body after that. Jesus Christ.
No, he'll definitely probably end up buried at the prison. Marie would go on to sue the Linwood Police Department and the company that ran...
As she should.
She also sued the company that ran the housing program that she had been in at the time.
As she fucking should.
She sued them for civil rights violation to the tune of $5 million. She said that the department mishandled her case from the get-go.
Real shit.
She was never read her rights. She was never told that she could have a lawyer present. And the counselors who ran the program, the ones who were charged with guiding teenagers into adulthood, never once suggested that she maybe should get a lawyer, and instead forced her to tell everybody in her program that she was a liar.
So fucked up, actually.
The police department would try to argue that the statute of limitations had run out for her suit.
Oh well.
That the clock started ticking the moment she said she had lied. Her attorney would counter that the civil rights violation wasn't known at that time, and why should she be punished for the discrepancy between the time she was charged with a crime and the time that O'Leary was found and proven to be her attacker? The answer was no, she should not be penalized for that time lapse.
Obviously, because there was nothing she could do.
Marie and the department would eventually go on to mediation, where she sat with mediators and told them everything. She told them how she was victimized twice, once by her rapist and once by the police. She asked them to think about their loved ones and how they would feel if they were treated in such a manner. She also wanted an apology. She would never get one from the douchebag who's now a private investigator.
It's like the least he could do.
She ultimately settled with the department for $150,000.
Not enough.
The department's insurance company would pay all but the deductible, which meant that the department itself
did not face any real consequence.
So what would the department itself pay for shattering this woman's life? $25,000.
Which it's like they have the funding. It's nothing to them.
The program also settled with her for an undisclosed amount. An investigation into the police misconduct took place, as it rightfully should have, with the investigators stating that Linwood detectives had no right determining if a rape victim was lying based on traditional police thoughts on perps lying during interrogation, unless they were trained behavioral specialists, which of course they were not. Victims did not behave all the same way.
No shit, everybody processes trauma differently.
There was no such thing as a cookie-cutter rape victim. Officers threatening her living situation, especially knowing her background, put her in a position where she had no choice but to acquiesce and recant. Because the alternative would be to either be homeless or in jail.
It's like if you put somebody in like a situation in which they have no choice other than to do what you want or say what they want, like they're obviously gonna do it out of any sort of self-preservation they can get.
And she's a kid. She didn't know any of this. She didn't know that she could call somebody. They took advantage of the fact. I'm guessing that dude that's now a PI just wanted it to go away and he didn't want to be bothered. We do know that Marie did end up having a happy, although no doubt haunted ending. After a long struggle, she would finally get her license. She would be independent, and she would eventually get married and now has children of her own, although she has long since left the Washington area. Not only did this heinous crime shine a light on the atrocious way that rape charges are handled, but it started a movement for an in-depth look at how departments handle rape claims. They are told that they are no longer to use the Reed method when questioning victims. In fact, there's a lot of line of thought that says they shouldn't use the Reed method at all when questioning anybody, because that method itself is known to cause a lot of false confessions.
Yeah. And it's just like undue trauma on a person that they're forcing to go through it. Like, it's like not necessary in basically
investigator in Marie's case basically said she was forced to over and over and over and over again describe her attack to strangers, almost all of whom were men.
That's just like so traumatizing, having to relive it so many times to people who don't even believe you.
And the fact that the details slightly differed when she told it was not surprising to him at all, because when you're being attacked in that manner, your thoughts no longer have a linear pattern.
And also, she just experienced like intense trauma. Of course, she's not going to be like the most coherent and the most like it's like nobody can be like perfect under those conditions. Like nobody can be perfectly honest, and people's memories aren't perfect. People misremember things all the fucking time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So it's like, and of course they're trying to press her to admit that it was false, or try to get any reason out of her why, like, not to look into it. So of course that's what they were getting, because they were psychologically like fucking with this poor girl.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. They were. It is speculated, based on department records of unanalyzed rape kits, that in the United States, there are well over 4,000. 400,000 uninvestigated cases out there.
It's like you do the kit and you don't even like analyze it.
Why?
Like that's the least you could fucking do.
Because women. That's why. It has been a long-standing belief, going back hundreds and hundreds of years, like I said earlier, that a woman's character should be taken into account when investigating a sex crime. What was she wearing? How much did she have to drink? Was she a sex worker? Was her family reputable? The list is honestly endless. And this is why an estimated 3/4 of rape victims never report the crimes committed against them.
Because they are so often mishandled and not taken seriously and demeaned and constantly having their integrity and their personhood questioned. Of course, nobody wants to fucking come forward. Because they know they're not going to be taken seriously. Or nobody in their life is taking them seriously. So they don't feel like they have like the ability and the confidence to speak up. Because if the people they know and love and trust aren't even believing them, why would the police?
And across the board, police need to do much fucking better.
Yeah. Okay. Actually. And you know what? Administration knows he was talking about victims and sexual assault in that way to one of his classes because somebody was documenting what he was saying. And you know what? He's still employed. So, everybody's really happy about that. We're all just jumping for joy. The fact that this man is in a position of authority over us and we have no choice in the matter. That this man is just allowed to say whatever he wants and get away with it.
Oh, okay.
With the intention of imposing his ideas and beliefs and his fucking bullshit onto teenagers.
Yeah. This is why I kind of appreciate the brand of vigilante justice that was doled out about a year ago. Here.
Oh, when
the teenagers jumped
and beat him with a skateboard.
Yeah.
And you know what? They went to juvie, but they're out now. And they were real for that. They were so real for that, actually.
And they're juveniles. So the record will be sealed. And he deserved it. And I'm sorry, but if I saw somebody with a conviction like that and asked them, what's that for as an employer? And they're like, oh, we jumped a sexual predator because he hadn't been arrested. That's acceptable.
Yeah. Because if nobody else is going to do it,
nope,
you have to show them that it's not something that they can get away with, especially with like between men. Because a lot of times men feel like, oh, well, these other guys, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Because they feel secure and like safe with other men because they just feel like, oh, they're not going to do anything. These guys, we're guys, we're bros. Like they're not gonna. So it's like it's important to be shown that no, you cannot just get away with shit like that.
Yeah, which is why
like you can't just fucking do that and expect no consequences.
Your father and I did have a discussion. He appreciated the level I stooped to when you and I talked about this topic, where I told you to take this kid down in any way necessary. Should he touch you,
I'm beating his ass on behalf of like not
do
only
that.
Me, if he has the fucking audacity to test me, but also on behalf of all my friends and everybody who he's fucking victimized, essentially.
And then you do that, and you proudly walk over to your brother's classroom, tell him what happened, text him if you have to on your way to the office. And your father will come and deal with it. But Dad appreciated my level of petty. Because he fully understood. Because if you tell your brother, not only did this kid get his ass kicked by you, but your brother and his friends are going to take him down a couple of pegs. Bean has a lot of jock friends that come from families where that type of situation would never be acceptable, whose mothers would beat the shit out of their children should they find out their son had done something like
Ace would get on it too, though.
Yeah, fully support calling Ace in on this also.
Yeah. No, he deserves it, Loki. Because administration just keeps letting him get away with it. And even though people who have gotten no contact orders against him, or just this and also just being a nuisance in general, he is breaking those no contact orders. So,
sounds like he's eventually going to end up with an ass beating from you.
Yeah. I mean, the school's not doing anything when it's their job to do it, and they have multiple reported instances of him just doing a ton of different fucking shit.
Hopefully he waits until your brother has beefed himself up at the gym so he can really just take him to lunch. He's only got a few weeks left. I mean, if it happens this school year,
I mean,
we'll come for you.
We could still beat him down. Okay.
Yeah, your brother's not a weakling. He's just trying to get.
I could still beat his ass down.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But he needs multiple ass beatings, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And
so much of this is gonna happen.
Guys, nothing. If anything ends up happening, nothing was premeditated.
Oh,
for legal reasons, this was all a joke. This was a fictitious. I don't know. We are not condoning violence here.
No, we do not condone violence here.
Oh my God, why would we ever do that?
But if you touch my child, I gave them permission to fight back.
Anyway, we should be beating up sexual predators more.
Yeah, I feel like.
And on that note,
yeah,
so follow us,
rate us,
do all that fun stuff.
Instagram, Facebook,
Sinister Studies Pod. Adios.
Hippie, it's time to go kayak.
Oh, you guys going kayaking?